everyone, this is Amber Key, and you're listening to a Bright Idea podcast, a show where I sit down with entrepreneurs to discuss the aha moments that launched their businesses. In this week's episode, I chat with Nate Revolus of Motus Crucis, the one and only parkour academy in Washington, D.C. Nate's training program and gym is dedicated to teaching movement, discipline, and community through parkour. His journey began as a teenager after discovering parkour online and quickly becoming obsessed with mastering the craft. What started as hours of daily training evolved into a deep passion not just for the sport itself, but for teaching others how to move with confidence and control. Many may not know this, but long before parkour gained mainstream attention in the US, DC was quietly becoming a central hub for the movement, thanks in large part to organizations like American Parkour, founded by Mark Toorock. The city attracted top athletes from across the country, hosted national and international training events, and offered the perfect urban landscape for the sport to thrive. But when that early infrastructure faded, it left behind a passionate community with nowhere to go, creating a gap that Nate saw not as an ending, but as an opportunity to rebuild something even stronger. In 2025, with the support of his family, Nate opened his own gym, building it in just a few weeks and creating a permanent home for parkour in the city. Today, Motus Crucis Parkour is more than just a training facility. It's a community hub where students of all levels develop physical skill, mental resilience, and a sense of belonging. Before we dive in, if you like what we're doing here at A Bright Idea, help us keep going. You can subscribe to this show to get notifications when new episodes drop. If you like what you hear, share this episode with someone who needs a little inspiration. And if you would like to support the show directly, you can donate to our Cash App at A Bright Idea Podcast. Lastly, if you're a business owner or a brand looking to connect with our growing audience, we'd love to collaborate with you. You can sponsor an ad within one of our episodes or sponsor an entire episode. Just reach out to us to learn more. Now let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Nate Revolus of Motus Crucis Parkour. All right. We are here with Nate Revolus with Motus Crucis Parkour here in Washington, D.C. How are you doing?
I'm great. Excited for this interview.
I'm so excited to talk to you.
Yeah.
I'm so excited, particularly that you are bringing back parkour to DC, which we will get into.
Right.
About how DC was a very prominent place for parkour.
Yeah.
And we'll get into what exactly parkour is, because a lot of people, even though it's been around for so long, a lot of people aren't familiar with it.
Right. They have The Office probably in their head.
Exactly. And that you're kind of revitalizing this this space, this sport, and super excited to have you here and to be in your space.
Yeah, thanks for interviewing me and like having me talk about it. I love talking about parkour.
Yeah.
And the passion, so this is a pleasure for me.
No, this is going to be great. Well, before we get into it, I'd love to play like rapid fire just to get to know you a little better.
Yeah.
But let's go. So, what's one parkour move that looks terrifying, but it actually isn't?
The gate vault.
Okay, what is that?
So the gate vault it's a vault. Any vault is defined as basically you're using your body to get over something.
Okay.
And it looks like a front flip, but you're not flipping at all. You're just like placing your body in a way that from the outside it looks like you're flipping.
Okay.
And so we teach 8-year-olds it. You could teach it to them in one day, and they can just almost get it mastered in that same day. But on the outside, everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, this thing is crazy!" Mm-hmm. But it's super simple.
Yeah.
And once you have a coach spot you 3 times, you're like, "Oh, this is easy." So we have on our school programs, we'll have 7, 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds. By the end of the sessions, they'll be doing gate vaults. People will be like, "Whoa, parkour must have taught you a ton."
Yeah.
Right? So it's a really beautiful looking move that's super easy, and it's it just makes everyone look really cool. So
that's super cool. I used to run in my past life, and I didn't hurdle, but I watched hurdlers, and to me, hurdling seems like such a hard thing to do. But really, and you think that someone is jumping over something, but it's really like a glide almost. And so when you're describing that, it seems a bit like that.
Yeah. Hurdling to me still seems difficult in my head, even though I jump over things all the time.
Yeah.
The hurdle technique that they used to stay close to it.
Right.
I mean, thank God those things aren't hard. Mm-hmm. If you mess up on this, it's cake. You're done.
Yeah.
But it's I guess with the hurdles, you have a lot of room for error.
Yeah. You're also incorporating speed too.
Right,
so
exactly,
there's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
What's something beginners overthink too much?
It really depends on the person. Some people are like, I say they came downloaded with parkour software already, right? They were born, they're like my brain really works in this way. And I think some people, it's like less intuitive. Maybe it's like personality. I think a lot of it chalks down to personality. But I would say probably if we're talking about technique, right, there's just so much variance. It's really hard to say. I'd probably say a backflip.
Okay.
Like, and I know that's like not a beginner move really, but like people have a preconception of what like a backflip is.
Yeah.
And so when they're going for it, they're just trying to cling to that like perception. So you have to like break down the perception first and then build it up from scratch. And so I think that many people overthink it because they think they know it in a sense. So
I love that.
yeah, I guess that's the easiest, or that's the first technique in my mind that came. Yeah.
What's the hardest lesson that parkour has taught you physically and mentally?
Failure is rewarded with more failure. And you need to push past the discomfort of failure if you're going to get anywhere that you desire. Yeah, both physically and mentally. It's like parkour can be dangerous. If you're pushing yourself hard, then there's a lot of room to get hurt.
Yeah.
And so if you really want it, you have to become the person that gets it. And so there's a lot of like drilling outside of those dangerous scenarios that should prepare you for the dangerous scenario. And if you mess up in that scenario and you're still okay, it's your job to go back in there regardless of the trauma that you probably faced so that you can go get it.
Yeah.
You know, so resilience is a huge part, and many times it can push you to tears. It can make you feel like the strength in your legs are gone, right?
Yeah.
But the goal is, hey, I'm here to conquer this and I can't leave until I do.
I love that.
Yeah.
My last one is one word to describe your coaching style.
Firm. Yeah,
Firm.
I'd say firm.
Tough love.
Tough love, for sure. When you see someone get hurt and then they're crying, it's hard to be like,
Yeah.
but it's like, no, that's part of it.
Yeah.
Like, and like you can't gain without risk. And there's time when you have to just experience that.
Yeah.
And understand that you are actually stronger than the challenge that you're standing up in front of. And so many times people, they see pain or failure as a reason to move away from something, almost like touching the hot stove. They associate it in the same way. But many times failure can be the gateway to where you need to go.
Yeah.
Right. But if you give in to that failure, you just encourage another failure. And then you go down a cycle of failure.
Yeah.
So winning is a choice. Confidence is a choice, even when I don't feel it. So it's an act of the will more than it is like responding to an emotion.
I love that.
Yeah. No matter what happens in this moment, I'm going to do the jump my hardest.
Thank you for playing rapid fire.
Yeah.
No, that was great. That was
Yeah.
a nice like opening into what this discussion is going to be talking about. You
Yeah.
talked a lot about failure and just about life and how parkour is really the metaphor for that.
Yeah.
I would love to take a step back before I talk to you about your background. I would love to know if you can take me back to your first jump and what that feeling was like.
First jump. I'd say that my first difficult jump, would you say maybe?
Yeah.
I guess the one that stands out the most was when I first learned how to jump to a rail. When my teacher did it, it just looked impossible. He just glided over these two rails and landed on another one and just stayed there. And I was like, dude, where's the glue on your feet? Where are the magnets, right? But it was just pure body control.
Yeah.
And so I think that when I first jumped to a rail, I was like, whoa, big deal. But I guess the biggest jump that I've done ever in my parkour career, I guess, my parkour journey, I remember this one clearly. It was at a park in Silver Spring, and it was from this like wooden post to this like yellow rail. I'd say it was probably 12 feet out, maybe like 8 feet down.
Okay.
It was big, and I was just jumping to a rail. And I just remember jumping at it and I was like, oh my gosh, I actually could do this. because I had the distance.
Yeah.
But it's like being able to maintain that control, like in your heart kind of thing. Like, oh, I'm not going to break out even if I get scared, right? I have to commit, because once you jump, you can't take it back. And if you really jumped at the rail, if you split your focus, let's say if you split your legs, you're just catching in between your legs. Maybe you hit your ribs or your chest, right? And then you're just in the hospital, and that would suck. And so I was like, okay, like I'm going to go for this. And I remember the moment I decided, I was like, no matter what happens in this moment, I'm going to do the jump like my hardest, right? I'm going to cling to my technique harder. I'm going to be more focused, right? I'm going to be, and the first time I hit it, I landed on it and bounced off of it. And I was like, oh, that actually wasn't that bad. And then I went back up and then I stuck it. So like from like, let's say 8 feet of height, like 12 feet out, just stayed there like there was glue on my shoes.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, no, it was freaky. It was a freaky jump, and but like super rewarding, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and like 11 feet is probably my standing max. Like 11, I think it's 11.6.
Okay.
If I'm like on the floor, just like from bar to bar or whatever, so 11.6. But when you have some height to you, that's not that big anymore, right? It's just like now it's scary because you're falling for so long.
I find it so fascinating, and I love hearing you talk about it, because when you talk about it, your eyes like light up and you can just feel the passion and like the adrenaline when you speak on it. Before this interview, I was doing some research because admittedly, I didn't know much about parkour. I'm like dating myself, but I remember like when Vine was a thing. And so I don't know if you remember like Thomas Spencer, I think his name was, but he like made those Vines that was like parkour, and like he would just like be jumping off of things. And I'm probably dating myself.
No. I remember Vine, but I'm probably confusing him with someone else.
Well, he's like super. Well, I think he like started it, and then it just became a trend, as most social media things become. But what I find so fascinating about parkour is like, so you see these walls or you see these rails, and like anyone else that might not have an interest in parkour might see this as like a wall that dictates the path in which you're supposed to go.
Right. It says can't go here.
Yeah. So you go around
it. Yeah.
And for you and for this culture, you guys jump off of it. It becomes climb it, do flips off of it. Yeah, build a wall, you know. I would love to know in your own words, like for the people that, like me, before this interview knew nothing about parkour, what is it?
Yeah, so parkour is a method that comes out of France, and it was built off of something called the natural method that was introduced by a French explorer. His name is, I'm going to butcher it, it's like Georges Herbert. And he went to Africa, and this was actually pretty rare at the time for like Europeans to go to Africa and stay there. I think, if I'm right, like, you know, maybe people can correct me, but they say that most Europeans couldn't survive a year in Africa, right? Just because of the disease, like the sun. This is before like sunscreen and stuff like that. So it would take a huge toll on them.
Yeah.
And so he went there, and he spent like a couple months, and he was observing indigenous tribes in Africa. And he saw that the way that they approach fitness was way different than they did in the West. In the West, like fitness became something where it was more about competition and dominating the person that you were up against, or just looking good. But there was never any functionality to it. And he was like, yeah, like fitness was actually supposed to be something that enriched the soul, right? So it's not just about the body. Fitness is supposed to develop you as a person, like your character. And it seemed that like the people that he was observing were brave, they were useful, and their fitness had like a context to it. It wasn't just, hey, I'm gonna get really good at soccer and I'm gonna beat you, and then that's what it's about, like winning, right? Versus like the development of the inner person. And so he was, I think he was like very Catholic, as a lot of people were in France at the time, and they were really interested in enriching like the inner life of the person, kind of like, you know, like you hear Plato says stuff like this as well. But like the inner life of the person, and how fitness was just meant to make you a better person, right? And so Georges Hubert taught, or he influenced Raymond Bell, who was part of the French military, who was going through these parkour courses, right? These obstacle courses. And he got really good at it. He just mastered everything. And he took the philosophy of Georges Hubert and influenced his son, right? And his son is David Bell, who is the founder of parkour as we know it. And he treated it like a martial art. And you know, the discipline of like to be strong, to be useful, so that your strength has a utility to it, rather than just like it being showy and flashy. Yeah.
Take me to the beginning of your experience. Like,
Yeah.
were you a rebel as a child?
Yeah. I was very insulated as a kid. My parents are Haitian immigrants, and when they came to America, like they moved to Brooklyn, I think in the 70s, and it was like scary at the time. And they were like, "Oh, we're foreigners in this land, and you know all these people, you know, we just don't really understand them." And so we moved to like a very nice suburb, like when I was a kid, and it was in South Orange, New Jersey, which is gorgeous, right? Very safe. But my parents kept that insulated mindset. And yeah, it did feel like, you know, you were really cramped in a cage. You know, you couldn't even leave the house without like family or something like that. It was really weird. And uh, parkour was one of those things that like my mom was like, okay, go do it. And so I feel like I was in a rebellious stage of my life, but parkour was a way to kind of like channel that energy in a way to develop in, I don't know, like the physicality, your mentality, you know, and your body's ability to do things, be more competent. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I remember you talking about was you were in basketball practice
Yeah.
and
Basketball class.
basketball class.
Right.
And there was a guy that did a backflip
Yeah.
in basketball class.
Yeah,
And you were like, I need to know who that person is and I need to know how he did that.
Right. Yeah.
And he ended up, you asked him, can you show me? And he was like, yeah. And then he became sort of your coach.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you talk to me about that experience? And then coming from such a strict home, when you came home and told your parents that this is like what you wanted to do, and I was surprised even when you told me that they were like, okay.
Yeah.
It seemed like from this like strict experience that you like found a sense of freedom. I don't want to like take your words, but can you talk to me about that?
Yeah. So the person who would become my coach, his name was Joseph Best. You guys can still Google him on YouTube. He has videos from NYPK. And this was like when parkour was still really young, maybe like 8 or 10 years old. And he was like trained by some of the founders as well. So he had a really good orthodox understanding of what parkour was meant to be. And so when I met him, he was in my basketball class. We were going to the same high school. I think he was a senior while I was like a sophomore, I think. Yeah. And he just did a round off backflip. I was like, oh, I got to like figure this out. Like, what is this? Someone said he does parkour. I was like, can you teach me? And he said, just come out. And so one day, like, you know, we have our lesson and he's like this big guy, right? He's like kind of heavy and he's just moving so effortlessly. Like it literally looked like it just defied physics. And so it had so much shock value to it. I was like, what? And, you know, I knew how dangerous parkour could be just because like how scary it looks.
Yeah.
But I just was like, dude, like if you can help me build up to that, like I would love to do it.
Yeah.
And so, no, he was a massive influence into the way I train today and gave me such like a structured understanding of what parkour was. That way, first off, I never hurt myself, never broke any bones, never really sprained anything like that.
Yeah.
And by the time, I think it was like 2 years into my training, when he left for a while. He went to like South Carolina and I started training with people in New York, but I spent years just training with him. When I went to New York, people were like, how long have you been training? I'm like, 2 years. They're like, dude, you're better than people who've been training for 6.
What did that training look like? How did you perfect that craft?
Yeah, so a ton of balance training. So parkour athletes do rail walking in order to like just increase their balance. We want to be competent on 2 feet on a rail. So we do like it's called something like rail squats. It's where you just stand on a rail and you just do squats on it. And it just builds your ability to stabilize your body. And then you like are also developing your strength with that balance, meaning you're able to apply it when you need it really quickly.
Yeah.
And so it does balance, I would say, is like the foundation for parkour, which is why we stress it so much with our students. If your balance is solid, you're just more aware of the world around you.
Yeah.
And then you can save yourself if something does go wrong. And so that's like one of the first things. And then foot-eye coordination. There's a technique called the precision jump. It's basically you jump with 2 feet at the same time and you try to land on whatever you look at with the balls of your feet at the same time. And that is just a massive part of parkour. If you miss an object in parkour, big consequences.
Yeah.
So you should become like obsessively good at it. And then everything else opens up to you. You can jump to whatever the heck you want. You can fly across gaps. You can like land on tiny little ledges. And to other people, they'd be like, oh, well, how'd you do that? I'm like, I'm really good at controlling myself in the air. Right. And so, and then vaults, right? So you taught a lot of vaults, a lot of climbing, mental fortitude, right? Like when you are afraid, having methods to overcome your fear.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I would say that's like the bulk of like the fundamental training. And then I don't know, you just kind of scale it up from there, and then it just starts looking absurd. So it sounds very simple. It is. I think it's a really simple method. And when you understand how the mindset of parkour is, once you take those methods, it just seems that you could apply it in really ridiculous ways. And it just doesn't look like, hey, the foundation of that ridiculous thing you did was like super simple.
Coming up, Nate talks to us about the mental fortitude and life lessons he's learned from parkour. You talk a lot about the physicality, and you touched a little bit on the mental fortitude that it takes to do this sport.
Right.
So you started in high school, and then after high school, you're still continuing to do parkour. What do you like think mentally? We all go through things after school and like early in our 20s, but how do you think that parkour like helped you mentally, sort of like in life?
It made me less afraid to just take risk that didn't have the consequence of my body on the line.
Yeah.
Like, what if you're afraid to talk to girls? Like, why is she more afraid than that? Like, why is she more scary than that roof gap?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you jump from one roof to another, right? Or like, if you're afraid to, let's say, go for a hard major, it's like, oh, the fact that it's hard isn't a reason not to do it, or, relationships are difficult, but, I do difficult things. That's like my entire life. That's what like I live for. So it made it so that like trying to achieve something in the face of difficulty, the difficulty was just kind of like a stepping stone rather than like an obstacle. And so I think parkour really does change how you view challenge. Yeah.
Just ahead, Nate shares how he took a leap of faith and quit his job. I think that that's like the perfect segue. You're talking about risk and taking the risk that you took to not only become an instructor, but open your own business.
Right.
One of the great things that you and I discussed before was you were going to school for physical therapy.
Yes.
And you decided you were on this crossroad, physical therapy track or this parkour track.
Right.
What made you choose parkour?
Yeah, I went to school initially, my undergrad was pre-med. And so I graduated and I was like, I come from like a family of doctors, and it's just, you get to see how hard they work. And you're just like, do you really want that? Or do you want it because like family or the money? And I was like, I don't really want it that bad. And so I went to the PT route. And then I was in a lot of clinics for like around 3 years, just like trying to get like experience while also like studying for PT school. And then when you just do the math on like the degree you would have to get, it's a doctorate degree, it's pretty expensive. You probably have to take out like 40,000 or 50,000 minimum more debt on top of your undergrad debt. And so just financially, it just didn't make sense. But the parkour gym that was on M Street shut down. And a lot of people were like flooding my inbox saying, hey, could you teach? Could you teach? Could you teach? Spending a lot of that time studying and working. And so I was always working. I worked every single day. I was just doing work at the PT office. I was studying, or I was doing parkour classes on the side. And then I just noticed that I was making more from the parkour classes that I did for like probably 2 hours, or like, let's say 5 hours a week, than I was making from my PT job, working 40 hours a week. And then I was like, wait a second, what if I just like scaled this up? I would work less and make more than even a physical therapist. And so it was like, I wouldn't have to work as hard. But not only that, I would be doing something that only I could really teach, only I could provide in this area. Like parkour, like you said, it's pretty niche. Not many people know it, but I love it.
Yeah.
Like not only do I love it, I really know it.
Yeah.
And so like I'm able to really communicate that to my students. And then I also have pretty good interpersonal skills. So it was like, okay, well, I'm able to like have like kind of like a pastoral approach with a lot of my students, like where it's not just do. It's also like, hey man, like, what about you? What do you want this for? You know, like how do you like, you know, get more personal.
Yeah.
And so like it's like every light just lit up and it was like, you should take this road. Like it makes more sense than taking this road. And so I think it was in the spring, it was like March, I think, of 2021, I quit my job. I actually technically got laid off, but you know, I was planning to quit that same month. And
so it was a blessing in disguise.
It was a blessing in disguise, yeah, because I was like, oh, I'll quit at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And they were like, nah, in the beginning. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And so, but it was really interesting because I was like, all right, well, let's go full time with this. You know, like let's pour everything you have into it, even if like you don't, and like, because you have to spend money to make money, even if you're like having to make those sacrifices so long term you can make it work. That's what you're gonna do. There's no option A, there's no plan B. This is it. Like it's either open up my own parkour gym or die trying.
Parkour chose you.
Yeah, parkour chose me. And so it was, and I just felt like God was really carving out a ton of avenues for me.
Yeah.
And a lot of opportunities. And, you know, when you're good to people and you work hard and you try for people, people want to give that back. And so I have a lot of the people that helped me start this place, the first month's revenue was a lot. And it was because they were loyal to someone who was loyal to them.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, and I think that's something I really learned is that like, you give genuine, good, like honest work, someone's gonna see you and say, I want you to keep doing that work.
Yeah.
You know, so value is less of a dollar sign and more of like trust and relationship.
Yeah.
That's what I learned from that, because first month wasn't doing too good. Second month, it did better. Third month, I was like, okay. My wife was like, why don't you get my girlfriend at the time was like, wife now. She was like, why don't you get a second job? Aren't you afraid that you might not be able to make a bill? You know, like, aren't you afraid that like this thing might not work the way you want it to? And I was like, fear has no place here. It has no place here. Like it's either I eat off of this or nothing else. Because if I am divided, then I won't work as hard. And that's just me. Like, that's how I am. Like, if I'm divided, I'm less effective.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's either I'm doing all of this or I'm not doing it at all.
And so prior to this gym, you were an instructor in schools, right? And you were just doing lessons like outside.
Yes.
Okay.
Primarily outside, which is difficult because of weather.
Weather, yeah.
Yeah. And we got creative. We found ways around it.
Right.
But yeah, it was super difficult. And then the school deals were really difficult as well because, you know, they'll look at the Instagram and they might see one of my students are pretty amazing, right? And this has happened 2 times where I have a student that's really good at parkour, like kind of very flashy good. And they're like, that's a liability. We don't want you, you know? And so I had to like start to curate our Instagram. It's like, okay, the guys who are really good, I'm just going to keep your clips in my pocket, you know? And I think actually the kid over there that you saw with the long hair, he's like one of my first students. And he's one of the guys who made it so I couldn't get a deal because he was so good. And so, yeah, it's, so it was difficult to work with schools, and certain like types of schools, like Montessori schools and private schools are more likely to be like really open to parkour just because they're just more open-minded about that stuff. But they don't understand that like the basics are super simple. You couldn't get hurt on the basics unless you fell asleep mid-class, right?
Yeah.
Like you're in the air and you just pass out.
Yeah.
Like that's the only way you're getting hurt. But they would, a lot of people would see what it looks like when you're really good at it. And they're like, there's no way we're working with you. So yeah, school deals were really difficult. So it was primarily outside.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about where you're located. You're located in DC.
Yep.
And we talked a little bit about it earlier, but DC was a very prominent area for parkour.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting that you were getting so much pushback. due to the fact that DC is also very transient, and
Right.
there was a moment where the gym was no longer the original
Yeah.
gym that made it
Yeah.
what it was popular. Was no longer in business, and so people don't know
Yeah.
about parkour,
Yeah.
and so you're sort of like revitalizing this sport.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So, can you talk a little bit about that and what you're trying to bring back to DC?
Yeah. So I want to bring back the general parkour culture that was here. And it was kind of like, you had like high schoolers, college students, kids, all kind of like communing together with adults as well. And there was this parkour culture that revolved around the gym, right? You had like events, jams, like we had international jams in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And so we had people from all over the world coming to D.C. to train parkour. And it was like just this hub of like, it was kind of like a church of parkour in a sense, right?
Yeah.
And so we had that, but I kind of want something like different, more, right? Europe has a really good parkour culture that isn't so dependent on their gyms, although their gyms help, right? But it's kind of like this social media integrated parkour experience where like parkour is kind of like soccer, right? Where it's like, hey, you have these guys playing soccer, you have these guys playing football, we can do parkour. And so I want to build like and invest in people who want to make a living out of parkour, not just from coaching, but maybe, hey, you want to go to full-time content creation, doing parkour. Like you can do that, why not? Right? Or sponsor some really talented athletes and say, okay, yeah, you want to do this and you want to like become pro. Why not? Like you could start in DC and we'll support you, kind of thing. And I want to make those real sacrifices so that like we can have these, I say like these symbols, right? These athletes that are these symbols of what the next generation stands for. And so some cities or some states in America have done this very well, right? Like Colorado has a really big parkour culture. So does Boston. And if you can invest enough into the community, then parkour will be like almost like a staple. But that's going to require like, us just making the right decisions, making the right sacrifices, and being social enough, right?
Yeah.
Like reaching out enough. And so,
Well, developing this community, as you mentioned, it does take a lot of resources. I mean, I think the great thing about parkour is that it can be done outside.
Yes.
Essentially, that's the purpose,
Right,
is
that's the
to like
purpose,
be
yeah.
outdoors. But as you mentioned, with weather permitting and all of the things, you needed a gym.
Right.
And we live in a very high rent and retail area.
Yeah.
And in order to, create this world in this space in this community for people that are to be interested and have an awareness about parkour, you also need some capital.
100%.
So how were you able to open this gym?
Yeah, that was like probably the scariest part. I was searching for a space and I didn't necessarily know how much capital it would take to even just walk through the door. Like I knew how much it would take to do this build out, and I was very proud because I'm really bad at math, but I was accurate about the cost. But it was kind of like, oh wow, like they're not worried about just a build out. They want to know what happens if like you don't have a year's worth of rent.
Yeah.
And I'm like, pardoname, like what do you mean by that? And yeah, so like they wanted like you basically, like in my eyes, you basically need to be a millionaire if you want to start your own business or have the backing of one, right? Or just like a fat loan, like a really fat loan. And so I was fortunate enough to have a family loan because my family made some investments that gave me the startup costs. They weren't going to give me like the backup money. I think I want to say it was like close to $200,000 that they wanted to see. And I was like, dude, like, where was I supposed to get that if I was on my own? And so my family was able to like just put it into my account, flash it, and then just transfer it back to them. And because they just want to know that, oh yeah, you have access to that kind of money, kind of thing. And then I only needed like 60,000 in order to build this place out. And yeah, it was like just such a blessing. Like a lot of things went right and a lot of things went wrong. But the things that went wrong ended up being a blessing in disguise. And so yeah, in short, family capital, which massive blessing. I thank my mom like probably every week for trusting me with that, because it's given me a platform to do like my dream, but also like to provide for my family, and like that's indispensable.
Yeah. And what an amazing gift it is to have the support from your family to help fund a dream.
100%.
That is going to help fund other people's dreams.
Yes, exactly.
Well. Yeah. When you unlocked this store for the first time, what went through your mind?
The kid up there, his name is Roman, by the way. I'm just going to keep referring him to that kid. He came that night too. So it was me, my wife, and he like biked over because I was like, dude, I'm about to get the keys. Right. And so, long story short, we paid the first month's rent, which means we were supposed to get the keys, but they were like being weird. And then they were like, oh, we just need to see your insurance. I was like, okay, show them my insurance. They're like, okay, yeah, the keys are at the hedge. The keys are like at the hedge in the front desk. I'm like, why are they at the hedge? Why aren't they in my pocket? And so we got the keys, and then, we stick it in. I'm like, yo, the dream is like on the way. Like this is going to be the stepping stone for Motus Crucis down the line. Like not just 10 years down the line, but 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line. I was like, this is going to be the first spot. I opened the door and I see how beautiful it is. It was a really nice well-maintained space when we first walked in, but also how much work needed to be done.
Yeah.
It was empty.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, the dream just requires more sacrifice. Like all that bleeding and burning just to get a key.
Yeah.
Right? They were like playing like cat and mouse with it for like almost, I think, a month. And I also had a baby on the way, by the way. So it was like the anxiety was just stacking. And when I opened it up, I was like, oh, more to do. Let's get done. Let's get down to business. Let's get it done. So it really showed me that like with like the power that I was developing through developing this space, it also came with this massive responsibility. And so sure, like, the glitter is nice and the gold is nice, right? Like the fact that I have it now is nice, but I was like, oh no, now I must maintain it. Now I must be responsible for it. And so I guess for some odd reason on the other side of that, you just don't really think about that. You're just like, give me the key. That's all I need,
Right.
And then you're here, you're like, oh, I need more.
And now the work actually begins.
Yes, yeah. And so it's less excitement, more, and there's excitement in there, but more, it's a more balanced experience. And I can remember even the way it smelled when I walked into here, and like they had this bar that was like, I think it was like 800 pounds, and we had to move it out.
Oh, wow.
It was ridiculous. Like, I was like, how are we going to do this? We had the plumbing. There was a ton, but with good people around you. And like, I had like, without the help that I had, especially from my students, and like my now coach, like, gosh, like I could not do this alone.
Yeah.
Like this dream could not be a thing with just me.
You officially opened your doors in 2025.
Yep.
And talk to me about your students. What are you able to offer your students now that you have this space?
Oh gosh, yeah. So with younger students, it is always hard to find things to help them get better at parkour outside. And that's because the world is so much bigger than them. And to find a place that's suitable and gives them like a baby place to like develop, it's like almost impossible. So there are certain techniques that we just couldn't work on because we just didn't have like the ability to. And as they get older, obviously you can like start pushing them more, but it's always like a rough grind, right? So to learn the technique. So now it's just like we're able to teach like flips here, for example, right? Could not have done that outside, right? Or we could not have done that outside reliably, right? Maybe if we found like a sand pit, we could do that, but that'd be so dependent on the sand pit and like the hours, is it available, blah, 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 right? So yeah, I'd say just better techniques, weatherproof area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and class consistency. Yeah.
I'd be remiss to ask this question. There's going to be listeners that, again, don't know much about parkour.
Sure.
And the only thing that they know is that it can be dangerous.
Sure.
You mentioned when you worked with schools that sometimes parents and schools were hesitant because they thought it was going to be a liability. There have been stories where children are jumping from metro to like moving subway cars in New York, and we had a few during the pandemic here with the metro. Do you ever have a concern for the liability of your business if something does go wrong?
Like inside of my institution or like out there?
Both.
Yeah. Inside, no. Our coaches are pretty down to earth and reasonable, and they just know that parkour is a discipline and that there are gates you have to go through before you go for the thing you want. So inside, I'm very confident, especially if my coaches are on the staff and if I'm at the helm of it. Now outside, I have thought about like what happens when you nurture the culture and then you do get what you want, what you ask for. You get these crazy, amazing athletes, but it's in the hands of whomever now, and they might not be that like wise, right? And they might be a young crazy boy, right? Our job is to create culture, right? The gym is basically a cultural center, and through that cultural center, we should be able to, I don't want to say indoctrinate, but induct other people into the belief, right? Parkour is this, right? If you are not doing this, this is not parkour.
Yeah.
And we don't want it to be like too like constraining, right? But in order for the thing to still be the thing, it has to have some of the structure you walked in with, right? And so the idea is that we do want you to chase greatness. We want you to chase glory. We want you to push yourself and work hard, but it's a responsibility. Like if you have this power, you need to be responsible with it. And so our job at Motus Crucis is to be culture builders, but for those who are outside of that culture, I can't really speak for them, right? Because there's a lot of crazy stuff on social media, and we want to be a bulwark against it.
Yeah.
We want to let them know that, hey, there are plenty of gates you have to go through before you're doing what that guy does.
Yeah.
Right? And because he's doing it and he's safe after. How can you be competent and confident, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really what we push here. And hopefully if the students see us, they will mimic us and become a different version of us in a sense.
I love that. I do see the benefits of what you're doing here and how parkour, especially for young children, can help with boosting confidence. It can help with, just extracurricular activities, spaces that they may not be accepted in otherwise.
Right.
They can be accepted here.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about what parkour can teach children mentally that they can take forward in life?
Yeah. Parkour is all about many people see the sensational element of parkour, like the big jumps, the flips over rooftops, or flips from really high things. And those are just the things that like are trendy. But parkour, like if you're just chilling, like let's say if you're a little sore, a lot of it's like creativity and problem solving. And so it's like you're in an environment and you're trying to basically listen to what the environment's telling you to do and adapt to that. And sometimes like, hey, maybe you got kicked off of this one spot because the security guard's there. But learning how to adapt and to react to the world in a way that is still constructive for you, I think parkour really does help with that. And also understanding what is a risk that's valid in a sense, or a fear that's valid versus like one that's just a ghost in your head.
Yeah.
I think that many people, because they don't do real things, they're actually kind of dissociated with what true danger is, and so they react to very low stimuli.
Yeah.
And so they'll get a panic attack over something that's actually not that bad. But I personally think it's because you're not doing something that's embodied.
Yeah.
And so we live this disembodied reality where like, hey, if I get an F on my report card, like my parents are mad, but like I'm okay,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like, hey, I'm okay, F, I'm not okay. And so there's this dissociation. And I think little boys feel it a lot. But this integration of, hey, this risk that I'm taking along with like my body, if I'm not careful, there's a real consequence and it's me, right? Like the thing that I love the most, which is myself probably, like is damaged now because I was incompetent. I just didn't do my due diligence and stuff like that. And so I think that it gives kids something real to wrestle with and to really analyze risk properly and to grow in courage properly because of that.
Yeah. Do you want people to take away from your story today?
You never know what you will latch onto and what will stick for decades. I would say, because I'm a parent now, I think a lot about like forming children, and like I'm thinking about forming my child.
Yeah.
And what kids are seeing, you just don't really know what they're paying attention to and what will stick. And so you should perform at your best all the time. You should always bring your best. And you should allow, I think children to follow the thing that they latch onto if it's healthy and productive, right? So yeah, I think that's what I would say. I feel like I didn't answer your question.
No, that was a perfect question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can people support you?
I guess follow us on social media. We're Motus Crucis, PK, or if you type in Parkour DC, you can follow us and maybe sign up for a trial class. We have summer camps as well. From 9 to 3, starting at the end of June. And just tell people about us. Like if anyone's interested in parkour, we're looking for like people who are like genuinely interested. If you're like not that interested, it's okay. You can pop in and out. But like if you're genuinely interested and you really want to work hard, like we're here to nurture you guys. So
it's awesome. Nate, thank you so much for your time. This has been such a pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks. That's it for this week's episode of A Bright Idea Podcast. This week's episode featured Nate Revolus, founder of Motus Crucis Parkour. If you would like to support Motus Crucis, you can follow the Academy on Instagram at Motus Crucis PK. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us bring on more stories like Nate's. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at A Bright Idea Podcast for updates. And if there's a topic or a guest you'd like to hear from next, drop us a message. If you would like to support our show directly, you can donate to our Cash App at A Bright Idea Podcast. This episode was edited by Quincy Tucker. And until next time, I'm Amber Key.